Thank you for joining me on this TGIF Friday, April the 22nd, 2022. It is a great day to be alive and well. Welcome to the show. I'm excited. I'm excited to be on the show. I'm excited because it's Friday and the weekend is upon us. And it's always great to have a weekend when some of us, I work on the weekends, but can be a little bit more relaxed because it's not everything about work and can get some of those other things accomplished that we don't normally have a chance to do during the weekdays, especially some relaxation and self-care time, which is critical for our mental and emotional well-being. But again, Life with Sharon, Midday Motivation. Thank you for joining me. And today our topic is boundaries, how to end manipulation. And that's manipulation from the perpetrator's end as well as the person being manipulated. Just a few tidbits on how to end that cycle because it's a deceitful cycle. And so we're going to talk about that today. But first, before we get into the heart of the matter, you're watching Midday Motivation Life with Sharon on the Full Life Communications page on YouTube, channel on YouTube, and on the page, Full Life Communications page on Facebook. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video if you like the video, as well as put comments and questions on the feed so I can hopefully answer any questions that you might have, and also to give you a shout out to thank you for watching personally with the shout out, as well as on Facebook. Please share the feed and like the page, Full Life Communications. Full Life Communications. Also, click the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I'm on, and you don't want to have to think about it. And I don't just do Life with Sharon Midday Motivation. I have other shows. Race Matters comes on 7 p.m. on Thursday nights. We were just on yesterday, and I have a couple of co-hosts who co-host that show with me, and we talk about all things race, a safe place to have the hard conversation. And some other shows are coming up in May that will begin in the evenings during the weekday. So stay tuned. Click the notification bell again so you won't have to wonder when we are on. And this is the Full Life Communications Network on Facebook as well as YouTube. And today, right now, it's Life with Sharon, Midday Motivation, just to give you a little jolt in the middle of the day to keep you going and to set healthy boundaries that we're talking about today, and some other stuff that ultimately pertains to the benefit of our mental and emotional and physical and spiritual well-being. So in totality, our whole being. That's why the network is called Full Life Communications, because we deal with the whole life on this network and how to communicate it, because communication is a foundation in relationships and in life. And so that will segue right into our conversation today, because manipulation is a form of communication. It's not a good form of communication. It's not a good way of how we communicate getting our needs met, because it's a subtle way of manipulating someone to get you to do what it is you want them to do, or any type of circumstance. So let's talk about first the perpetrator of the person who has a manipulative form of communication. So, you want to think about what's that about? How did that even start? Where did I develop that bad habit? Was it a learned behavior because when I was a child, other people, that's how I learned to communicate, because typically that's how we learn how to communicate in our family of origin, whoever raises us, those in that dynamic, however they communicate, we continue on those behaviors into adulthood until such time as we become an adult. And sometimes people go to their graves not making any of these changes. But as an adult, you want to begin to look at what's working for me and what's not working for me that I learned from my childhood. Because just because you learned it in your childhood doesn't mean you need to continue it on, because we learn good and bad things in our childhood. And no blame, so to speak, on parents and people who raise us, but we're raised by imperfect people. So some of their flaws are going to be placed on children, and some of their good qualities are going to be learned by children. So it happens. It's a given. It's a fact. We can't get away from that. As flawed, broken, imperfect beings, we're going to give out the good of us as well as the not so good of us. So we're starting from there. But again, as an adult, what type of communicator am I? How am I communicating my needs? And am I doing it in a manipulative? Do I find myself doing it in a manipulative way sometimes to get my needs met? And if that is the case, again, trying to discern the origin of that and understanding that you have control now, you have power now over yourself as an adult to continue in that vein, or to make a change. And I would hope that if you find yourself being more of a manipulator in certain situations, that you would decide that that's not a good look, because it isn't. And I have control over myself to do something different as an adult. Okay, so if you find yourself being a manipulator in certain situations, just try to understand, well, what is the result that I want? And if this is the result that I want, why is it that I have to be underhanded and deceitful about it to get the result? Why can't I just be honest? So this is the conversation you want to have with yourself. So if I'm honest and say X, Y, and Z, and the result is what I want or what I don't want, because that's the reason for manipulation, because we want to get someone to do something that they may not do. So if I manipulate them into it, then maybe they will do what I want them to do. But here's the thing. If they don't do what you want them to do, why is that so bad? That's the thing. So it's a control issue. Manipulation is a bad form of control. There's healthy levels of control, but then there are unhealthy levels of control. And manipulation is a deceitful, underhanded, passive aggressive form of control. So I don't think I'm going to get the outcome that I want. So therefore, I'm going to manipulate you, or try to anyway, into getting the result that I want. But what is so bad? This is the question to ask yourself. What is so bad about me hearing no, or getting the result that I don't want, whatever that result is, that I am not going to be able to handle it in some way? Are my feelings going to be hurt in some way? What are you not going to get that you fear? Therefore, you feel as though you need to manipulate someone in order to at least raise your chances of getting the result that you want. So that's what you have to think about. What is the fear that if I don't get what I want on the other end of this, that I have to manipulate my way into it? A lot of times when we do something or don't do something, we're fearing the result. So think about what you're fearing. And if you don't get it, why? Is it just because you want your way? And typically that's the broad way of saying, it is, but whatever that way is that thing on the other end so detrimental that if you don't get it, the sky is going to fall in? Probably not. But it's you've become accustomed to it more than likely. So now it's a habit, but it's a bad habit that needs to change. And you can change that because you have control over yourself and how you communicate and how you behave. So take a look at what is the result that you're seeking and why you feel as though you need to manipulate your way to get it. And then let's try honesty. Ask for what it is that you want. And if you don't get it, give yourself permission to let it be okay that, what, I didn't get that. I'm not going to always get what I want. That's just life. No one in life always gets what they want. But now if you have a habit of manipulating and trying to manipulate and therefore getting your way through manipulation, you're accustomed to getting your way, but by deceitful means, which isn't good. Because when you operate in deceit, that's a heart issue. That's not a good look. And then so you may find yourself being distanced, people distancing themselves from you, because a lot of times people pick up on this, but they might not say it to you, but they really talk about you behind your back, because we know that that's what people do, unfortunately, right? And not to say that everybody would talk about you behind your back, but they might know it, but just like, oh, that's just Charles. That's just, making up a name. That's just how he is. But you know what? We do people a disservice when we don't call them, therefore confront them, but confront them in a positive way, an assertive way, not an aggressive way that's going to devolve into an argument, but confront them on their stuff, such as, I hear what you're saying. However, I hear manipulation in that. And that's not what, we're friends, or, we're family, whatever the case may be. And that's not necessary for us to interact that way. You could just ask me, and maybe, I'll do it, and maybe I won't. But it's okay for you to just ask me and not try to manipulate me by guilt. That's one way that people try to manipulate people, by guilt. Children are master manipulators, especially very, very, very young children, because all they don't do anything, but all they do is sit and watch. And they're master manipulators of their parents, pulling on their heartstrings, right? Parents, you know what I'm talking about. And so if the child whines long enough, you're like, mommy's going to come pick me up. And that's what I want, because she's not going to be able to take my whining but for so long. And I know this to be true because I've seen it, because that's what happens. I whine, mom picks me up. I whine, mom picks me up. Well, now she's kind of getting used to it. So she's not doing it, but I'll whine a little bit longer because now she can't take it anymore. Right? So the child has just manipulated parents into picking the child up. That's just one easy example. But parents, you know, you can look over many aspects of your life when you can see how your children, and again, even I'm saying even young, really young kids who have not even learned to walk yet, have learned to manipulate. And then, of course, through the lifespan, you can see how, you know, in adolescent and teenage years, whether you fall into the trap or not as much as when they were young, because you kind of feel a little bit bad because they're so young. But as they get older, you know, you're hip to the game and you're like, no, that's not working. But not always the case, because, parents are parents and kids are kids, and they still give in to children's, young people, adolescents, teenage manipulation sometimes, or oftentimes, just depending on the dynamic in the family and depending on the parent. So that's just one instance where manipulation is often used, is growing up in childhood with children manipulating parents through the guilt factor. And moms, no disrespect to moms or anything like that. Moms tend to be master manipulators too, to get children to do what it is that they want them to do, and not just children, adult children as well. Moms tug on those heartstrings about whatever it is that they want done, and knowing that even though you're an adult child, you're still the child. So that parent-child dynamic is still happening. So there's still some guilt feelings there, or some whatever feelings there, that you're the parent. I need to do what you're asking me to do. But then sometimes, parents know that I might have to, or moms may know I might have to throw a little extra in there of manipulation, right, to get what it is that I want. Now, some forms of manipulation are more subtle than others. Some are more overt. But still, regardless, even though it might not be so heinous and so, thought out evil manipulation, but it's still not a good tactic nonetheless, because it's still deceitful. Just ask for what you want. And if the person says no, they say no. Be able to accept someone's no. That's part of the problem. People don't want to hear no. And, of course, we all want what we want when we want it, but that's not reality. Reality is you're not going to get your needs met all the time, and you need to be okay with that and not try to manipulate someone into a yes because you don't want to hear no. So that really speaks to you. You have to look at yourself and like, why is it that I can't handle the word no? And when you look at that and, do some self-reflection, as I'm constantly talking about on the show, assess yourself, do some self-reflection to try to understand yourself better. Why is it that no just freaks me out? I can't hear it, or don't want to hear it. I don't want to accept it. Why do I want my way all the time? And again, as humans, we want that, but we need to live in reality and understand that people have the right to say no, and I need to be able to accept that. Because when it's time for you to say no, you want people to accept your no. It works both ways. It's mutual. So do some self-reflecting for those of you who find yourself trying to manipulate others to get them to do what it is that you want, and figure out why is it that you do that? What was the origin? And take the power and control that you have as an adult, as a person who can now do what it is that you want to do and how you want to do it, knowing that manipulation is not a good look. It's deceitful, it's underhanded, it's passive aggressive. And it doesn't help relationships to flourish because it's unhealthy. And it's an unhealthy habit that you can break. So now the people who are being manipulated, now do you have people pleasing issues that we talked about yesterday? And so you struggle to say no. So you struggle to be assertive because you're more passive and you go along with, but underneath you're simmering inside because you're doing things that you don't want to do, which is an explosion waiting to happen. So you need to self-reflect as well. Why am I people pleasing? Why am I so easily manipulated to do something that someone else wants me to do when I don't want to do it? For whatever reason, your reason doesn't matter if you don't want to, because you just don't want to. And your no is okay. Get comfortable with your no. Your words have power and your no has power. And oftentimes when people say no, when someone has asked us to do something or whatever, or attend to an event, whatever the case may be, then here comes the guilt trip. It's like clockwork. After you say no, now here comes the guilt trip. And now that's what we don't want to hear. I don't want to hear somebody try to guilt me into it, so I'll just say yes. No, that's not a reason to say yes if it's something that you don't want to do. So say no. And then when the person tries to go down the guilt line, check them on it, confront them on it, in an assertive way, not an aggressive way. You just can simply say, I said no, and I would appreciate if you respect my no. And I would also appreciate if you didn't try to make me feel guilty by trying to manipulate me into saying a yes to whatever it is the person is asking. So how I said that I was calm, I wasn't angry, but I was firm, and I let you know that I don't appreciate trying to be a guilt tripped into saying yes. I said no, and I would appreciate if you respected my no. This is a boundary that I'm putting up, and I'm asking you to respect it. Because when you put your no boundary up, you want me to respect that boundary. Again, it's mutual. So this time I say no, you may say another time, no, another time. And we need to respect that because we care about this relationship. If you care about the relationship, you're going to respect the other person's boundaries. And when you disrespect the boundaries, that tells you how much you care and don't care about that relationship and about that person. That's an action. You may say, oh no, I really care and I really love and I really this, but do you really? Because when you care and you love, you don't treat people that way. You're not manipulative. That's deceitful. That's harmful. That takes away trust in the relationship. So if you're going to care for someone, you're going to love someone, you're going to be in relationship with someone, you have to care for them in the way you communicate with them, in the words that you choose to use, because your words have power. You don't want to be deceitful. You don't want to be demeaning. You don't want to be disrespectful. All of those things erode a relationship. And then you wonder why there's a falling out, or you wonder why this distance has been created. We reflect on how you're communicating with them. Have you been manipulative? Have you been disrespectful? Have you tried to guilt trip that person into doing things that you wanted them to do over the years of this relationship? It's usually not just a one-time thing. It's like it's been years, because this is a particular habit that you have. Well, you know what? Sometimes people will distance themselves, but they might not say why, but they're tired of it. And when I'm tired of something, then I distance myself because I don't want to be in that person's presence. I don't want that feeling that I get when I'm with that person. It's uncomfortable. And if I'm not good on confronting, I'll just stop having as many conversations with you. I won't text as much. I won't call as much. We won't go out as often. But now that person should confront and just say, this is the reason why. And if we are going to continue this relationship, friendship, whatever it is, this is how I need things to be. I need to be respected. I need to feel heard. I need to not feel like I'm being manipulated into. Our friendship is more than that. And it's a mutual thing, not just what I feel, what you feel too, what you think too. Let's talk about it. So if this can be worked out, we can work it out. And our relationship can remain intact because we were just honest. Honesty goes a long way, even if sometimes the truth hurts, but the truth should be said regardless. But it's how you say what you say. Now, what you say is how you say it. Again, let's not be demeaning and disrespectful and aggressive. Let's just be assertive and say what we mean and mean what we say. But using words that build us up rather than tear us down. Be constructive rather than destructive in the words that we choose to use within relationships. That people say that in all relationships. I should walk away from a conversation with you having grown, having thought about something in a different way. Like, wow, you know what? Even though we disagree, we walked away with our relationship intact. And I'm walking away with some new nuggets of wisdom with how we handled that. Because we could always handle something in a negative way, but that's a choice. We could choose to handle it by taking the high road and caring for the other person's feelings when we're talking to them about how we feel, and vice versa. We don't have to name call. We don't have to belittle and demean. Speak to the facts. What are the facts of the situation? Let's not get into this global conversation. You did this, you did that. well, because of this, because of that, or name calling, things that these negative conversations evolve into because we're not dealing with the meat of the matter. We're just being emotional, and now we're being abusive. Let's get out of these abusive conversations that distance us in relationships. And manipulation is abusive because it's deceitful. Now, you're deceitful with people that we love. Why would we do that? But unfortunately, we do it frequently, often, because we're not paying attention. And that's why I talk about on this platform living intentionally. Because when we live intentionally, now I'm choosing my words more wisely. I'm communicating more wisely. I don't want to be a manipulator. I don't want to be deceitful and underhanded with my friend, with my spouse, my loved one. I want to be a healthy communicator. And I want to be communicated to in that way as well. So let your no be no and respect the person's no. Both people, both entities operating on the same level of healthiness. How great would that be? Both of us being honest and being able to handle our honesty because of how we say it, and respecting one another and who that person is and what they bring to the table. When you say no, okay, fine. I say no, fine. Understood. Maybe next time. What's so wrong with that? What's so hurtful with that? That doesn't hurt. That promotes healthiness. The other way is unhealthy. And it doesn't promote positivity and strength in a relationship. It leads it downhill rather than strengthening it to become more, to become better. And we can do it. You have the power and control to do it. So think about these tips that I gave you today, that we talked about today, if you are a person who tends to manipulate, or if you're a person who tends to be on the manipulated side, and saying no, receiving no, and saying no. Huge. Because those are the two typical factors in the situation. I don't want to hear no, and I don't want to say no. So let's both do some self-reflecting and assessing and reassessing how we got to this point. And working on, you know what? I want to be honest in every aspect of my life. And if my honest answer right now is no, or my honest answer right now is I can't do that, but maybe this time. And my honest answer is whatever my honest answer is. I'm standing in my honesty. I'm standing in my truth. And I can do that. I have the control and the power to do that. I have the right to be honest and speak my truth. But remember, it's the how and not the what. It's how you do a thing. It's not what you do. So be honest, but be assertive and not aggressive. Both parties. So that's my tips for today for how to end manipulation from the perpetrator side and the person trying to be manipulated. I hope you got some information today that will help you if you find yourself in either of those categories. So join me Monday when we talk about how to walk in your purpose, how to live out your purpose. A lot of times we don't even know what our purpose is, why we were created. So we're going to talk about how to discover that and how to live that out on a daily basis to help you feel more fulfilled in life. People don't often feel fulfilled in life because they're not walking in their purpose. They're just living haphazardly, and whatever job they have is just a means to an end. It's just to make money to pay the bills, but it's not fulfilling. So let's talk about how to discover and how to live out your purpose. That's the show on Monday. You guys have a great weekend. I love you all. Thank you for those who watched live, and thank you for those who will watch on the replay. As I always say, this information is relevant no matter when you watch it, morning, noon, or night. And I appreciate all of you who watch the show, and I pray that you've gotten some benefit from today's show and all the other shows. Again, have a great day. Have a great, wonderful, prosperous, and safe weekend. I love you. God bless you. Shalom.